may even find out that you're not thinking about your product fit correctly or your business model in the right direction. So I'm saying all of this, and I think she found value in that conversation to say that the first barrier, unlike what people typically would think, would be a knowledge gap. People need to continue to learn about industries, about business models, about efficiency, running efficient businesses. In different markets, they're approaching this differently. In India, for instance, today, they are teaching entrepreneurship for 1 hour every day at schools. Imagine what type of ideas and businesses will come out, and capacity and skill will come out from that economy in 30 years, where they teach entrepreneurship well, 1 hour every day for 30 years. You've seen them do it in tech, and now almost all global CEOs, or almost all global marketing product type people, UX, UI people, are Indians, right? So I would say knowledge gap is the first barrier, and I think there are many interventions that are going in that direction. Number two, I would say deal quality. I saw it this week, and I don't know if it's a recent information. Abiola, you may have seen it. An edtech company recently just refunded capital to, this is Educoya, right?
Yeah.
Refunded capital to investors. And what did they say? They said they found out that the market they were targeting has no money for the products they have built, and they refunded money. Now, imagine what the frustration would have been if they shopped around and there was no investor. It would have been, oh, you know, there's no money. I would say that as we continue to close the knowledge gap in this space, we'll begin to see better quality deals, because a lot of times when we interact with investors as well, what you find is that investors have money, but they're complaining that the deal qualities are poor. There's a lot to be said about that, and one way to mitigate that, and I think accelerators and incubators are taking a good start at sort of helping venture owners and just promoters to, you know, be more efficient and to have better quality deals. I'll just mention paucity of data as another thing that is critical, and we have found in this environment. Everybody knows it, but I think people are navigating it through just traction. And in these days, you know, bootstrapping is no longer popular because of all of the flamboyance and the romanticization of funding and, you know, startup funding. Whereas, you know, and everyone here has given the data, there's a larger SME ecosystem that has a funding on the continent that has a funding gap of about $350 billion versus only about 1% of that went into VC funding last year or the year before. So finally, I would like to say that you may not be able to also sort of move faster than the bus that you are in, which means that the macro factors affect how the direction of funding, whether that is funding coming into the economy or just funding moving within the economy. At AVP, we try to promote unlocking local capital. So we have 25 trillion sitting in pension funds. How should they be unlocked? Can they be unlocked? What sort of viable financing models can we find, research, promote to ensure that this capital is moving? But I'm saying that macro factors play a role. You know, how does capital move? Is there efficiency in how capital comes in, how it leaves, what it's allowed to do, and things like that within the economy? So these factors, create, thank you very much, some barriers to startup funding. People are finding ways to navigate it, but these are the barriers, or some of the barriers. We can have a long list, and it is as you do that you find solutions. Over.
Correct. Thank you so much. You unboxed quite a couple of things, but I want to share that before going back to UK, as a founder myself, I will tell colleagues, you know, in the journey, that you don't necessarily have to go and look for VC funds. I am strapped, proud to looking at exit now for about 4 years on debt, because the model works for debt finance, and that's a form of fundraising as well. Right? Two is, it's never bad to realize that what you've tried to build is wrong, or the market is not ready, and say thank you, it's been a great time, and close the shop. We should not stigmatize or feel bad because we have to make that decision. But I will leave it to the panelists, so let me come back to the panelists. Now, Okay, from your practical experience, you sat at Better Ventures as the managing partner. You know, you also exited 3 companies in Silicon Valley, very competitive environment to play at. What would you say that founders, and not just founders everywhere, founders in Africa, Nigeria, Africa, need beyond just money? Because everyone wants to start a startup and raise the next $350,000 and take out of that money and buy G-Wagon and think they have arrived. But what do they need beyond just money? Thank you.
So I think the question is, what do founders need aside from money?
Yeah.
Right. So I think founders need a significant amount of advice, but it's a two-way street. So you can give the advice and then the founders listen to it. So about 7, 8 years ago, we made probably our first large check investment. So some of you might know a company called Smile ID.
Of course.
Okay, so we are the early stage investor. I sit on the board. But when the founder came to me and he wanted to raise money, the words I said were, "You're in Tanzania, going for telcos, not going to work. Come into Nigeria, look for fintechs. We will help you navigate regulators, market, so on." And he did that. So right now, Smile ID is the largest identity player in Africa, 54 countries and so on. But we realize that it's a journey, and that journey requires input. So when we look at founders, we always say, one, you need governance. And the governance helps you through these types of issues. It gives the CEO a sounding board, and it allows them to believe in the things that you say. Because you have quarterly reporting, you have quarterly updates, they can call you when there's a challenge, and you can help them through those challenges, whether it's strategic, product, partnership, and so on. The second thing I would say is that we forget that most of these entrepreneurs, most of the people that are thinking about it, they're usually in their 20s, 30s. They've never built a sales force. They've never managed a team. They've never run a company. They've never raised money. But we believe that it's a great idea, write a check for $1 million and they'll do it well. It's a recipe for disaster. So what we say is that there is assistance, and we found that a lot of our companies need assistance on product. How do they figure out that product market or the product market extension? 2, they need assistance on sales. Sales is a big one. You have these technical organizations that are running around with engineers that have never sold anything in their lives, but they believe that they've invented the best mousetrap. Well, no matter what you invent, you have to sell it, you must distribute it. So we found that sales is another thing that they do a lot, or they value a lot. Management as well, helping them fill out their teams and so on. What we found is when we invest in companies, we're coming in as a lead investor. We're typically taking a board seat. So the other thing we help them is in figuring out who to take money from. I will say that again. Remembering that who to take money from is just as important as the money you take. I say that because at the point that Tochukwu made of 350 billion is needed, and maybe 1 or 2% is coming from venture capital. We require very robust exit possibilities. So if, for instance, I give you $1 million, I acquire 20% of your company, and the valuation of your company is $5 million, the minimum I would need, I'll say that again, the minimum I would need is I would need 10x my money, 10 times. That's correct. That is the minimum. That's correct. Which means if I own 20% and I need 10x, that means your company must be worth $50 million within the next 5 to 7 years for it to be considered a good investment. So I think the alignment there, and it's not just the return side, it's the value side. And so we're very instrumental in helping our portfolio companies with next set of investors or current investors, so we fill it out with valuable additions. And the last thing I would say, the third and the last thing I would say is we don't think about this enough, but we actually think about this when we make an investment. We think about exits. If you ask me why I made this investment, when do I think they will exit, who will they exit to, what is the value I think they will exit, on the day of the investment I can tell you those things. And what we do is we help entrepreneurs have those exits. There was two young women that came to me for investment, and we went through this whole process. I said, how much are you looking to raise? They told me, have 500,000. I said, if you raise 500, how much would you sell? They told me. I said, okay, so are you able to build this to the point that I get 5 million out? They said, no, that we just want a lifestyle business. We want it to be very profitable, but we don't want to be beholden to those metrics. We want to get to $2 million of revenue, and that's it. So I served as an advisor, but we never became an investor. It just didn't make sense. But you must think about those exits as in the type of company you're trying to build, and we help entrepreneurs get through that.
Thank you so much. We'll come back to Tochukwu and, building on what you've already established, that investment is hard, looking for money is hard. Why should I trust you with my money? Why should LPs having given money to, VCs, why should you be the right person they should choose? But a lot of ways are coming in that people are looking at, demystifying the concept of investment now. That startups can consider, innovative ways of doing fundraising. What would you consider as the right innovative ways of fundraising model in terms of approach to investors? For context, in terms of, and you said community earlier, so I just want to speak further on that. For example, let's make it practical. In Nigeria, in Africa, what sort of community will give you that kind of drive to know the right investors to meet, the right money to take, like Ike said, the right way to speak or engage with the investors? What sort of community do you mean as an innovative approach to fundraising?
Thank you very much. Just elaborating on that, I think that communities would, we can tear that on two sides. On the supply side, which is the capital side, you can just check out the work of a few actors, and if you're in Nigeria, just follow the work of AVPA, follow the work of the Impact Investors Foundation of Nigeria. You see thought leadership, knowledge materials, sessions or things, or just events that can help you understand the ecosystem better. There won't be enough time on the panel to go into detail. On the demand side, there are quite a number of accelerators and incubation and hubs, across the country. Just search. In Lagos, you can join the Impact Hub. You can even the Omniverse will be a community ISN. Even just within this conference, you'll find people in your sector that are doing things that you can learn from. But just going forward to speak to innovative financing approaches or methods or financing models, I would say, obviously, number one, you would have heard, and I know that this crowd is a mixed crowd of, young and old, mature and starters. So you would have heard about impact investing and catalytic capital, which is a core of the work that we do at AVPA. We try to promote the concept and the idea of catalytic capital, which is really trying to unlock more risk capital towards these impact objectives or these impact opportunities that are replete on the continent. Capital that is more patient, that is more nurturing of innovation, and that also can achieve measurable impact objectives alongside with returns. And I can speak specifically to certain type of investments. So for instance, if you look at the work that Livelihood Impact Fund has done, and I know some of their investments, these are people who ordinarily just want to do good, right? But they understand that plain vanilla grant making is not the way, and it may just distort the market. So what they do is to structure very useful patient capital into target sectors, and their most important outcome and objective is just improve livelihood. So they're not really looking for returns per se, but they won't give you a grant. They will structure it as a proper commercial debt, even though they know that they can give you as a grant. So those are some sort of catalytic capital dynamic that is coming up in the market, and that particular business used to borrow at very high interest rates, but when they receive this capital, they're now doing much better. And I wish I'll be able to feature them in one or two conferences very soon, just to show the impact of the work that has happened there. And Livelihood Impact Fund is an ABPA member. They're out of Nairobi and Nigeria. That's one way. If you want to know more about our work and our intervention in catalytic capital, you can just look up our website. Another obviously popular concept is blended finance. Yes, blended finance has sort of helped to do some work in Nigeria, and some of you that follow the thoughts in agriculture, you see the thing that or the work that MasterCard has done with Sterling Bank in sort of beating down the cost of funds for certain portfolios. It's been done as well in energy. So all of the work around, or all of the talk around innovations in climate and energy and renewable energy, consumers will tell you they're not able to pay. So for instance, a 28% interest rate level, blended finance arrangements have provided financing options that consumers can now access at as low as 18-19%, right? So blended finance is sort of an arrangement that is going on there as well. And the work of, if you want to know, ABPA members, small foundation is also providing some very useful guarantee instruments to local banks, and they've done something with the alternative bank. They're structuring other things with other banks as well. So just check out that work, and you'll see some blended finance approaches. I'll end by saying that there are many innovative approaches. Sometimes spontaneous finance. So for instance, instead of spend 2 years trying to knock the wrong door of a funder that either is not your funder or does not hold your money, just being placed in the right mix in the value chain of your ecosystem can give you financing. Someone may need your output as their input, and if you negotiate well, you have immediate funding, and that's spontaneous finance for you. I can go into a lot of detail. I think it was someone earlier that was speaking about acquisitions. So there are a few innovative approaches, but I think the more, and there's no time today to go into a lot of detail, but the more we explore these approaches, I think the more we are able to nurture this vast innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystem on the continent.
All right, thank you. Just on a final note, and everyone will just have one touch on this. What are one or two things that you think will make the most impact to drive Africa's digital economy's growth? To unbox that, what do you think to make things better in investment, growth, and technology in Africa?
So I would say two things, right? I think on the investment side, we find that a lot of companies approach us with projects, and we're always asking, what is value? Where is the creation of value? Are you doing something that helps someone? Because if you're doing something that helps someone, finding the product market fit is not hard. It's when you show up and you tell me, I do payments, and I can point at 5 different companies that are doing what you're doing, but there's nothing differentiated. So I think it's always try to figure out the secret of this. There's something that nobody knows that you have figured out that is giving someone else value. I think that's the first thing an entrepreneur should be very good at trying, or should learn how to explain that value to someone like us on the investment side. So that's the first. The second, I think the entrepreneurs need to look at scale. Because we always talk about funding, but we never really talk about scale. Because it's the scale that unlocks funding. If I figured out the value of the problem, and the problem is big enough, money chases opportunities globally. There's not an Africa, Nigeria thing, it's a global thing. So if I figure out a problem and I figured out scale, raising money is not the challenge, it's the implementation.
Thank you. So, okay, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so final thoughts. I would just agree with EK because I don't want to replicate the thoughts. Efficiency is very important. I would add to that by saying the problems are real, and beyond all of the fancy talk about capital, tech, VCs, there are actual problems to be solved. There are jobs to be created on the continent. There's about a gap of 11 million jobs every year to be filled on the continent. The number of stunted children in Nigeria is bigger than the population of many African countries. So there are real problems to be solved. I'm saying this to remind us that there's impact to be made, there's impact to be had, and so as we think through, if you're not careful, light may go off on this day before we leave. There's such a huge land mass of opportunities to engage and to consider. So it's just my final thought to say, as we think of all of the big talk and the big buzz, there's impact to be made, and the work that we do is to help investors build capacity to be able to unlock more capital towards these impact opportunities. And the way to do that is to find viable and innovative models, because talk is not going to unlock the capital. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much to the panelists. We've had a very great time. The key thing is opportunities are in Africa. Money chases opportunities. Create your own opportunity and let the money find you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's give them another round of applause. I'd like to welcome